Good afternoon. The purpose of this press conference is to announce the findings of our internal investigation as it relates to the actions of Officer William Escobar. The Orlando Police Department takes all allegations of excessive force very seriously, and these matters are thoroughly investigated. In June, we were notified of the video which depicts Officer Escobar striking a handcuffed person. We immediately conducted a criminal investigation. That criminal investigation was turned over, hand-delivered to the State Attorney's Office on August 19th. Subsequently, we initiated our own internal investigation, which was conducted by our Internal Affairs section. Officer Escobar was sustained on multiple violations of our department rules and regulations, which include standards of conduct, use of force, treatment of prisoners, obedience to laws and department regulations, and false reports. The actions of Officer Escobar that night do not reflect the overall actions, performance, and behavior of the Orlando Police Department or our commitment and dedication to keeping this community safe. It is our responsibility to protect the great reputation of the Orlando Police Department. Therefore, effective today, William Escobar was terminated from the Orlando Police Department. And I can take some general questions now. We're going to make sure we give you guys a full and complete copy of the completed investigation.
Chief, initially I was under the impression that there was nothing really after the State Attorney's Office wanted to file charges against Escobar, that there was nothing that you guys saw that was warrant anything. Why the change now?
There was never any change. We always conduct our own internal investigation, like I said, which is completed by the Internal Affairs section, and we don't make a determination until the entire investigation is complete, until all the witnesses are talked to and questioned and all the evidence is presented.
Chief, how big of a role did this video play in your internal investigation?
Well, certainly video kind of clears things up, and we were able to see parts of what happened.
You had both videos. You had the video that the sister of the suspect took, plus body cam video. And again, what changed? Your sergeant determined after investigating this, and I guess having access to the videos, that there was no crime. And your training sergeant also signed off on the force as acceptable. Do those things concern you, and are any changes being made in either training, or is Sergeant Drayson continuing to do these investigations?
Initially, the use of force was approved by Sergeant Haddock and parts of the chain of command before the video was available. Afterwards, that's why when the video came forward, which we didn't have access to from the very beginning, that's why we conducted our own internal investigation. Like I said, we conducted a criminal investigation and handed our findings over to the State Attorney's Office.
I believe that Sergeant Haddock referenced the videos in his statement, that he had seen them.
Right.
I believe he had, so I believe they were available to him whenever he signed off on the force.
Upon his second review, yes, but not upon the initial review.
Okay.
Chief, considering the way the climate is now as it relates to alleged police brutality across the country, and the fact that video was out there, and the fact that people have been saying all along that these officers or this officer punched, kicked while this man was handcuffed, how are you going to quell things in the community as it relates to this case and others when it comes to police brutality?
Well, like I said, we take all allegations of excessive force very seriously. And in this case, once we learned of the video, that officer was relieved of duty and hasn't been back on the street wearing this uniform since then. And I think we have shown through our investigation and subsequent termination that we take these allegations seriously.
There was body cam video that night, and there were several officers on scene. Are you concerned that nobody told the State Attorney's Office there was body cam video? And I read the discovery, and it said that the officer, I can't remember his name, who was with Officer Escobar, they looked at that body cam video that night and both agreed it looked bad because the suspect was handcuffed. How could so many people be there and not realize there was body cam video in that case?
Well, I think when you see the body cam video just in it of itself, it's not concerning. When you see the entire video, the cell phone video, and then the body cam video, that kind of pieces things together. And that's why we do an internal investigation.
Chief,
Are you gonna release
Chief,
all
I'm
that
sorry.
video, the cell phone video?
Yes, we're going to release all the video.
Chief, if I could, good afternoon first. Is this the only officer who's going to be punished in this situation? Because there were other officers who were at the scene, who witnessed this, and also made reports that were contrary to what the video showed. So is this the only person who's going to be disciplined in this whole thing?
He's the only person that is disciplined in this situation, yes.
Okay. And Chief, what would you like to say to Mr. Holloway in response to what has unfolded throughout this process?
Well, we'll give our completed investigation. Any complainant in our internal affairs investigation is notified of the outcome regardless. And so
But don't you want to
he'll be getting
apologize to him
notified.
for what's happened?
He'll be getting notified of the completed investigation.
Chief, with the National Action Network of Wanna Goes, my concern is now with the separation from the legal standpoint, is he now being treated as a separate entity from the Orlando Police Department? So now the attorneys must go after him alone and not the Orlando Police Department?
Well, certainly he's not an employee anymore of the Orlando Police Department or of the city of Orlando.
Chief, I'd just
Holloway
like
was
to...
arrested at the time of one count of resisting arrest without violence. What's going to happen now? What has happened since this? Will this change the way of the charges?
I believe that charges you out, but you have to ask the state attorney's office about that one.
And a different officer sent the checklist to the state attorney's office, not Officer Escobar, but a different officer sent a checklist to the state attorney's office in Holloway's case and checked the box no for video. So do you have a problem with that? Or did someone lie to that officer? Or
No,
was
I
that
don't
officer
believe
misrepresented?
anyone lied. I'm sure that was just an oversight. We only have 50 officers right now who have the body cam video, so it's possible that that officer didn't realize that a responding officer in the middle of the night in the dark actually had body cam video.
Is that what that officer said, that he was not aware?
I'm not sure.
Was he questioned?
I'm not sure.
Chief, I have a follow-up question here. I just want to make sure that I understand what you're saying here. Given everything that has occurred, and you've taken this action today to restore trust, I assume, with the community, you don't wish to apologize to the victim in this case who was on camera beaten while in handcuffs? You don't want to say anything?
Like I said, certainly I wasn't there. I absolutely do not condone the behavior of Officer Escobar, and that's why he was terminated. Next question.
I have a question. I know that Officer Escobar is facing both charges of battery as well as perjury, which means that, I mean, he filled out the paperwork as he should have after an arrest, and apparently lied about what happened. So, I mean, I know you said that he's been fired because he does not represent what you expect out of an OPD officer, but, I mean, he's one of 3 officers to be arrested for crimes they committed on the job last year. Are you worried at all that maybe there is sort of a culture that this is okay and you can sort of skew the police reports to read in your favor when you're
Well, absolutely not. If you look at last year, we had over 400,000 contacts with citizens, 150,000 traffic stops, 16,000 arrests. These 3 incidents that you talk about represent, I think it's 0.00076% of all of our contacts with the public. So no, there is not an underlying problem. And I think the important thing to remember in this case is that it was thoroughly investigated. The person was found to have committed those violations and was terminated today.
How long has Officer Escobar been with the police department, and did he have any priors?
He was hired February 21st, 2012, and no prior offenses of this nature that I'm aware of.
The officer who was
Chief,
with Escobar...
Initially, I thought that it was stated that the OPD investigator said there was no probable cause to charge him. So in that vein, and please understand, I'm just asking this from a citizen's and a reporter's perspective, do you feel like at all there was some sort of air of cover-up?
No, and that's why we hand-delivered the case to the state attorney's office, and we brought them a huge book and said, look, these are the facts of the case, and we brought that to them. So if that were the case, we would have never brought it to the state attorney's office.
Is anything going to change? Because the sergeant saw differently in both Fugit's case and
No,
Escobar's
I think
case.
the important thing to remember is there's checks and balances. One opinion did not determine the facts of this case. Like I said, we brought it to the state attorney's office, and that's a separate issue, because that case is now in the hands of the state attorney's office. As far as we're concerned, he committed the violations he was investigated for, and he was terminated because of that.
So perjury, conduct, I'm just trying to make sure that I'm listing everything that is correct as it relates to why he was terminated.
All right, standards of conduct, use of force, treatment of prisoners, obedience to laws and department procedures, and false reports.
I hate to belabor this, but the Sergeant Drayson had the same information, I believe, that Internal Affairs had, and how can their conclusions be so different?
Right, well, he was investigating possible crimes. We're investigating violations of policy. So there are different levels there. We only go upon a preponderance of the evidence for our violations. So that's why, and like you said, that's why we hand-delivered the case to the state attorney's office, sat down with them, explained the case to them.
Chief, I'd just like to ask one last thing. You didn't want to speak to the victim, but to the larger community. People who might look at this incident, and some people, I should say, not everybody, but some who might look at this and say, this is another example of the breakdown in trust between police and community. How do you repair that? And what do you say to those people who might have that feeling?
Well, I think this is a great example of us holding our officers accountable. And here we are today terminating this officer for his behavior. So I think that just instills the trust from the community to the police department.
Has any directive gone out to the officers? I know not everybody has body cams, but the ones who do, because, you could look at this, some could look at this and say, well, the officer apparently lied in his report, then just lied that there was video. So what stops officers from lying that there's not video when there is in cases? Can you address what you're going to do about that? Because obviously the body cams that's the big issue right now. How
Well,
would
certainly, we haven't made our final decision about body cams. We are, like I say, we're still in the middle of our test, which is, I think, scheduled to be completed in March, where 50 officers are wearing the body cams, 50 officers not in control group, and we're still working on our policy. We are looking what it will take to outfit officers of an agency this size over a 3 to 4 year period, and certainly all of that will be looked at.
When will the results of the actual paperwork from the investigation be available, and the videos? When will all that be available?
Today, afterwards, right?
Are you concerned, there have been tensions in other communities, and sometimes here because of things that happen in other communities, because of, the tangles that the public and the police get into. The bigger picture, are you very concerned about that, and are you hoping that this sends a clear message to your officers and also to the community that you are not going to tolerate this?
Well, first of all, I think the community trusts this police department, and the message that I will send is to the community. Our officers already have the message. They know what's right and what's wrong. My message to the community is saying that we're going to hold our officers accountable.
Did Officer Escobar apologize or say anything to you?
No.
Chief, as the top leader of the department, if you could just, were you disappointed when you got the total package of this, when you saw the video and you read all the reports and you realized you had all these violations by this officer who, as you said, wears his uniform and represents not just himself but every officer on the force? How disappointing was this to you personally as the leader of the department?
Certainly I'm disappointed about this incident, yes.
Do you know whether he's going to fight the termination? Do you have any idea? I don't know.
I'm not sure. I'm sure he will. All right. No more questions. Thank you very much.